Welcome to The Pulse. I'm Christina McCauley. Joining us now is Tammi Moses, founder and CEO of Homes Are for Living. Thanks so much for joining us today, Tammi.
Thank you for having me.
Tell us a little bit about how you got started in this career of hoarding awareness.
Part of the reason I started talking about this issue is because I was dealing with it with my own parents, and I became really aware that there were a lot of other people also dealing with aging parents who have too much stuff in their homes. So I started looking at the myths and misconceptions around hoarding, and I knew that I could start talking about that and break down some of those myths and help us as a society understand the issue a little better.
And I loved what you were telling me before we brought up the cameras, that most of us, whether we know it or not, know someone who has this problem.
Yes, amazingly, there are so many people that have this, and we may not know that, but there are things that do make it apparent, like you can drive by some homes and see that there's probably an issue there with the overflow, but it's usually about 1 degree removed. So it could be a neighbor, it could be a friend, it could be a coworker, or a sibling. And so there is actually a bigger issue at hand than when we first look at it, what you would first think is actually a problem.
So let me ask you this, because I think people throw this term around so much, like, oh, you've got 2 sodas in your car, and they're like, you're a hoarder. But it really is a mental disability. It's a problem. What are some of the 3 red flags that you would tell people that differentiates, okay, you've got a couple things to you're actually have a hoarding problem?
So one of the things is, if you know people and you're never invited to their home, there's probably a reason for that, and sometimes it is hoarding. The other part of that is you may see someone who's normal on the surface, but has some sort of trauma or something that's caused them to resort to this hoarding behavior, which is actually does have some things that relate to anxiety and depression. So there really are underlying issues that cause people to pull these things to them.
So they actually need help from somebody like yourself to get themselves out.
Yes, and part of it is denial, and people are not wanting to necessarily talk about why this has come about in their lives. So part of what I do is try to just have that conversation, start initially with the relationship building, and just find out how you can help that person or the person that's helping the person who hoards.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. What really helps in dealing with people who suffer from this?
Part of what really helps is to separate the person from their things and really focus on how can you help that person. Ask how they are. Do they need a ride? Have they been to the doctor lately? You're running to the store. Do they need milk? So just kind of coming alongside them in a non-judgmental way and building that relationship so that they can trust you as you move forward with them.
And you said you actually talk to people and they say, well, why is it so important to address this? Is this really a problem? It is a problem.
It is a problem, and as people age, they may have had a collection of some sort that might overflow and start becoming an issue. And a lot of times it's because physically, as we age, we can't deal with things the same way as we did when we were younger. So if there starts to be a buildup of, say, newspapers in your tub, or you can't use any of your appliances in your kitchen because they're covered with everything, and a lot of times, especially if we are children who don't see our parents that often and we live elsewhere, we may not know there's an issue. We go home and see, oh my goodness, this is a problem. When I was here 6 months ago, it was the recliner, and now it's the whole living room. And a lot of times it does happen that quickly. And if you are a person who has a hoarding issue and you move to a new location, if you have not addressed those underlying issues, that behavior will continue in your new location. And so, as part of a mental health as well as environmental health, you really want to look at what's going on and how can I be different so that you can reconnect with some people that walk away because of the hoarding.
So let me ask you, I'm sure there are tons of people out there who are thinking, oh, I might know someone, I need help. What do you do to help people who are hoarders?
So initially, I start the conversation. I give someone a safe, non-judgmental space to say, this is what's going on. Oftentimes that conversation would not necessarily start with the hoarding person. It may start with the family member who says, I have this thing, I don't know what to do. And I can start with, okay, tell me, what is the outcome you're looking for, and how can I help you work through this? And sometimes that could mean having a conversation with the person who hoards. It could even go to the point of, say, an intervention type conversation where we take a couple hours and just say, okay, here's the issue, mom, dad, sister, and this is why we're concerned, and this person's here to help us figure out what's the best way for us to move forward.
And you said there are 5 levels or 5
Yes.
stages. So could you go over some of those? So if someone is thinking, I need Tammi to talk to my mom, what are the stages?
So there are stages 1 through 5, and 1 is you might just be stepping into the hoarding situation, up to 5 where basically the entire house is unusable due to the amount of things that are in it. And so I talk to people who say, oh, I'm a hoarder. No, probably not. If you're coming out and saying, I'm a hoarder, you're probably not a hoarder.
Good to know. Good to know. Everybody hear that? Okay. Because hoarders don't know they're doing it.
It's
right?
almost like a blind spot,
Okay.
where you don't recognize that this is really part of what's causing a problem in your life. And so if you have a stack of mail that you need to go through, which I have that, you're not a hoarder. You have a stack of mail you need to go through. But it can go, even if you're at level 1, you're talking surfaces can't be used. There might be some rodent residue around the home. So chances are, if you're not at that, you're not even in the hoarding scale.
It's when your home or your living situation becomes unlivable.
Unlivable, basically. And if you're at about level 3, someone's going to probably start noticing, hey, it wasn't like this 6 months ago, and now it is. So, but it can happen quickly, and a lot of the shows now usually show what I would see as a level 5. So you're basically in a really bad situation where you may almost be evicted, or your property might become condemned because of the severity of the situation.
Okay. So a stack of mail, not hoarding, unlivable homes, thus the name of your company, Homes Are
Yes.
for Living. That's an issue. Tammi Moses, thank you so much for joining us. How can people get in touch with you? They need your help.
I have a website, homesareforliving.com, and I'm also on Facebook as well as LinkedIn and YouTube.
Fabulous. Tammi Moses, Homes Are for Living. I'm Christina McCauley, and you are watching The Pulse. See you next time.